Okay, so today I'm going to talk about taking AutoCAD drawings, cleaning them up, and making them useful to import into Visio for using as floor plans for our control drawings. So you're going to want to need probably an Autodesk TrueView, and you'll use this to convert newer files if you have an older version of AutoCAD. You'll use it to convert the files down so that you can open them up in the tool that you have and then manipulate them and save them later. So the tool I'm going to use is a full version of AutoCAD. It's AutoCAD 2010. But if you have a newer one, obviously you probably don't need to use the conversion tool. However, a lot of the CAD files you're going to receive from mechanicals are going to be newer because they're using subscription-based applications, or they're using something like Revit, and they're going to be exporting in I don't know, 2019 format. So you may need the DWG TrueView. You may not. If you do need it, what you can do is just go to the Autodesk website, and it's a free download. So you can actually use it as a viewer only, but there's a conversion tool built into it. I'll show you that in a second. So you're going to need those two items. You're going to obviously need your CAD files, and then once you've got them all cleaned up and ready to go, we'll import them into Visio, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. So close down Chrome, don't need that anymore. So I have a bunch of CAD files here from a job. I'm only going to go through one of them. We'll just pick one kind of at random here. And I just created a folder on my desktop and dumped it in there. So if I try and open it up from the original files, you'll get this message here. And it'll tell you basically it's from a newer version. You need to use this TrueConvert tool that's actually part of that tool I was mentioning before. So you'll hit OK. Go to your DWG TrueView, you'll open it up, and when you go to the menu up here, you'll see DWG Convert. You'll open that up. And there's several different conversion setups you can use. The two that we really care about are the ones I've created here. I think one of them comes in by default with this Convert to 2007 in place. And basically what that means is it's going to take the file that you open up, it's going to convert it to a 2007 AutoCAD format, but it's going to overwrite the file right there in that folder. If you wanted to convert a folder of multiple files, you can use this other one that I created. And these, you can modify these through the conversion setups and rename them and stuff. You can customize them a little bit. And actually this one, if you look, it'll show you some details that convert all the files in 2000 to 2007 format, and then it'll drop them into a folder under my documents, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But it's pretty simple. All you do is you come in here, you click on the conversion setup you want to use, you load in your files. So I've already done it. So under this folder, I'll pick this DWG here, hit open, it'll add it to the list, and you pick the conversion you want. I'm going to convert to a different folder, so I'll go ahead and hit convert. There's already one there because I was messing with it earlier. So yes, I'll replace it. And then once you've done that, you don't need this. You don't need to save the list of files. You can close that down. And then you're really done with the conversion once you have it in 2007 format. So what it'll do is it'll create a folder. Based on the setup, the conversion setup I used, I had it create copies in this AutoCAD convert folder underneath documents. My documents, and it created a conversion kind of log file, and then a kind of a copy of where it's physically located from the original. So you'll see the one I just did here at the timestamp to match. Okay, so that's the one I'm going to open in AutoCAD. So I'll drag it into AutoCAD. It'll open it up, and then of course you'll see all of the mess that is on the floor plan. And this will match up pretty closely with what you might see on your mechanical drawings. But what we really care about are the things like the walls, the doors, maybe stairs. You're going to look for, room names and numbers. And if they have, this one doesn't have it, but if you have zone sensor, like wall sensor locations on here, you can pull those in, focus on those. If you want to utilize the equipment locations, if they're on here, you can pull those in as well. And then, maybe you don't convert them, maybe you do, but you can use them as a guide to placing your modules within Visio when you're trying to do your design. But it's kind of messy. Some of the things to focus on is you'll want to pull up a properties toolbar here. And this will look a little weird because I'm only trying to squeeze it in on one page here, or one screen. And then you'll also want to have your layers over here. So we're going to kind of squeeze all this in the best we can. So under the layers, and it might look a little weird because normally it's expanded out so you can see all the colors. Might have to shrink some of this stuff down. There we go. That's a little better. Okay, so what I'm going to focus on is if you click once on this, you'll see there's like a whole bunch of different components that are lumped under this block. Depending on how the CAD files were exported, you might find some of this. It's not a huge deal in some cases. In other cases, you end up with stuff showing up all on one layer. It can be a little unruly to clean it up. But in a lot of cases, you'll have a boatload of layers and they might look a little cryptic, but we'll go through some of them and how you can kind of narrow down what it means. Easiest way to figure out what you want to hide and what you want to keep is kind of just identify visually some things that you don't really need when you're going through to bring into your control drawings. You don't need the column lines and the grid numbers, so you can click on that, and if you have the properties palette up, you can see what layer it's on. So then you can just scroll down to that layer, and if you turn it off, you'll see the lines go away. You'll also notice, so that's grid, and grid identifier would be this thing along the side here. So you can hide that as well. And you'll kind of just methodically go through and do something similar. So you've got HVAC diffuser identifier is what that really is. So we're gonna hide that. And you'll see right here, there's also another one. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see the changes. So you can see the diffusers themselves right here. Maybe there's one there. You can hide those. We don't actually care about those. Find some other things in here that we can hide. So like ductwork. Don't need ductwork. You can use that the ductwork on the plans if you need to identify zoning or something like that. The reason being, when we pull this into Visio, yeah, you could pull it in, but the more stuff you pull in, the slower the system's going to respond. And if you're only using it for one specific purpose, you may not want to do that because it'll bog down Visio. It doesn't like to bring in and convert a bunch of stuff. But what we can do here is a HVAC duct. So you'll notice the color's different because this one is defined, the color is defined at the object rather than the layer. So you can change your options up here to different colors, or you can say by layer, and you'll notice it's that matching green color that was under duct right here. So you can change the color for each layer. If I deselect it and zoom in, you can see it changed the color for just that one component because I changed it to be by layer rather than by the object. And again, this one's same thing. So it's very specific. But again, we don't care. We're going to hide all that anyway. Let's see what else we got. Duct center. So there's a duct center one in here. There's some annotations associated with it. You'll see some of the things we'll hide. That's the best way, is to kind of zoom out and kind of visually just look at what is going away. Maybe you zoom in to make sure it's something make sure you're not hiding something that you want to keep. Duct identifier, so all kinds of labels right there we don't need, right? These are just dimensions. Don't need to bring in any of that stuff. Other things. This one, like I said, there's a lot of things grouped in here, and we'll get to that in a minute. So this one is equipment. Well, we might want to hang on to equipment, right? So what we'll do is on the equipment one, I'm actually going to rename this one and make it real easy. Put a Z in front, or you can do an A or whatever you want. We can add an A in there. And that way it makes it easy to identify things that we've addressed we want to keep. Now with floor plans, the floor plan colors, we want to use this 251. It tends to be a really good color that comes in well when it's brought into our control drawings, but it's not so bold that it kind of overpowers all the other stuff we really want to focus on, our modules, the network routing, other labels for our modules. We want it to be there, but we don't want it to be so in your face that it distracts from the real information. So 251 works well. And when you change that, you'll see there's all kinds of stuff that shows up on those layers. Now the equipment, to go back to it, now the equipment, we'll want to use something to maybe make it pop a little bit. So we'll do red instead for equipment. And then when we get all our floor plan walls and doors and everything identified, we'll end up putting them on one layer, and we're going to call it floor plan, just to help identify. We'll call it floor plans, and we'll set that one to the 251 color. So we don't have anything on that layer yet. Equipment identifiers, so same kind of thing. On the equipment identifiers, we'll want to maybe rename that layer. So we'll right click and rename, and equipment names, maybe throw Z in the front there. With the equipment, I tend to use a red for the equipment just to kind of make it pop a bit. And then everything else, with the exception of maybe the zone sensors, are going to end up being that gray color. So like these labels for the room names, we're going to end up making them gray. And so same kind of deal here. Area identifier. So we'll go in, we'll rename it to Z room names. And I'm just doing this to make it easy to understand. Make them that 251 color. You'll see they kind of look terrible on this black background, but once they hit white paper, it'll make sense. Let's see what else we got in here. That's equipment. We've got some annotation notes. I will hide that one, show and hide that one so you can see it. A note. So there's all kinds of labels on here that this thing hides. And you can kind of zoom in and out just to make sure you're not getting rid of stuff you really want to see. These kind of look like zone sensors, but they're not. I think they're like lights or something in here, just the way they're mounted. And they didn't have any kind of S or T inside the circle to designate that they're a zone sensor. So I'm going to hide those. We've got some other things here that are MHVAC duct. Oh, okay. So one thing you'll notice is that you might find some items in here that look like they're on this layer, but you've already hidden the layer and they're still showing up. The reason for that is it's a block of other shapes. So that block exists on this layer, which we have hidden, but the other shapes that are making up that block must be on a different layer that's not hidden. And you can go in to the blocks and identify what layers they're actually on by going into the block editor. Let me go back and do that again so you can see. So you can left click to select it, right click, block editor, and then you can pick the individual components and see where they land. So that where's it at? So this one right here. So I'm going to close the editor, and then I'm actually going to kind of zoom out here and just go ahead and turn that one off. And you can see it hides all those items. You don't even have to go into the block. That was just to be helpful. So there's lots of other things that it's going to hide as well, right? Now some of these we may really care about, some of them we may not. With the floor plans, we kind of want to get the general structure. So maybe some of these details are worth giving up for the expedience of cleaning up the floor plan. Let's see some other items here. Now, another thing we can do is just start going through, because this one is a block. Same kind of rules. There's a bunch of different components that exist within this shape that you don't necessarily have to go into the shape to edit. But what I typically do is I'll narrow down what's easy in the layers, and then you can kind of just go down the list and you can say, all right, zoom out, kind of take a peek at it, and start turning on and off layers. So area looks like just some area divider lines. That's kind of all it is. So leave that off. We've got some columns in here. I'm going to leave the columns in because they kind of show some structure, and I don't notice anything else that goes along with that. Some details. There's all kinds of details in here that are getting taken care of. So some of these may be useful, some may not. If they don't take up a lot of space, or there's not a lot of extraneous things, then you can leave them. I've got a bunch of little artifacts and things I don't really care to see, so I'm going to go ahead and hide it. Let's see, keep going down the list. Got some outlines here for some furniture or some general, I think that's just furniture. It's just some kind of divider lines. These are all kind of X's here to show showers and such. We can hide those. Doors, we want to hang on to those. Door frames, these items, we'll hang on to them. We're not really saving anything by getting rid of them. We'll get rid of those though. There's plenty of details that we don't need. Handrails, handrail bin, I guess. That looks like a thing outdoors. We don't really need that. Don't need those details. So I'm just going to go through quickly and do these. Now you see this one is glazing or glass. You'll want to leave those in there, but you might take out some of these other items. Sills, we'll hide those. They don't really, we can leave them in, that's fine. We're going to leave, we got the wall, this is a wall. You'll zoom in. You can see that's basic wall structure, so we will definitely want to keep that. The patterns in the walls, don't want patterns. You do not want patterns. If you ever converted this, it would take forever, number one, and it would end up having a bunch of individual lines all over your place. We don't want all that. E-data, I don't see anything in there. Hide some of those items. I'm going to go through as quick as I can here. Some text. Nothing overly useful. All sorts of furniture. Furniture. Other furniture. Nothing major there. Interior walls. I'm going to keep those. Plants outside. Don't need those. Don't need, I guess those are like picnic tables or something. Don't need those. Don't need M area. We don't need sanitary plumbing, sanitary fixtures. You can see, zoom in. You can see toilets and stuff. Don't need those. Casing. This is not essential stuff. Got one little item up here. Some miscellaneous items here. Nothing really worth hanging on to there. There's those columns, we'll leave them. Oops. Stairs, I'm going to keep the stairs. The rest of the stairs. Then we have our equipment names, our room names, and then we had a couple other items that we've already looked at. Equipment, and then floor plan's empty, remember we said. So now that we've got it pretty darn cleaned up, there's not much on here, right? So what I'll tend to do is I will select all of the layers. I'm going to hide all the layers, and it's going to warn you, oops, turn them off. It's going to warn you that the current layer, meaning the 0 layer that I already have selected as my default, I'm getting ready to turn it off. What do I want to do? Yeah, I'm going to turn it off. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn everything on that is not one of these layers I've already selected. Okay, so I'm going to select all that, and then I'm going to deselect the items that I already know I want to keep. I'm going to turn it all back on. I'm going to do that. That's not what we want to do. Okay, all the items that are off, I'm telling you wrong. Let me go backtrack a little bit. All the items that are off, we want on, and all the items that are on, we want off. But the easiest way to really change out the things we care about, we want to hang on to walls. We want to hang on to the layers that we just renamed. And it looks like I renamed them all different. So let's try that again. Okay. So these items, I'm going to turn them off. So now all I have is the walls left. The things I want to keep that are the walls. So what you can do is, since all this is one big block, you can come and select, and if you select this way, it'll select differently than if it selects this way. You can play around with that. Once you select it, if you hit X and then you hit space, it's going to explode that block. It's going to break it into its pieces. And once it's broken into its pieces, you can move them by selecting them again. You can move them, change their color to be by layer, and change their layer to that new floor plan one that I just created. Yes, I know it's hidden. That's fine. You'll notice there's a bunch of objects still sitting here, and the reason is there are a bunch of blocks, right? They're different blocks that I need to break up again. So we're going to hit X space again. It's going to break them all into pieces. Got to wait patiently while it does it. Once it's done that, you'll select them again and change to by layer for the color. Change it to the floor plan layer. Yes, I know I've done that. Same thing here one last time. By layer to the floor plans. Okay, so now when I turn the floor plan one on, you'll see everything is gray because I've changed all those objects that I exploded, changed them to that gray, and put them on the floor plan layer. It's the most expedient way that I've found. Instead of battling through all of the layers, battling through all the blocks and the various components, the easiest way is to just bust them up into their pieces and put them all on the same layer. So now, if we turn all the things that we renamed on, this is kind of the basics of what it's going to look like when it comes in to Visio. Okay, that's how it's going to look. Now there's a bunch of other crap that's still in this still in this file in the background, even though we don't see it here. So what you'll want to do now is, now that you've got all the things you care about isolated to these layers, you will turn those layers off, and you'll turn everything else back on. So we're going to turn them on. So turn them off, and then we're going to select everything except for those layers I just created. We're going to turn them back on. And then I'm just going to select and straight up delete them. And then once you delete them, they don't exist there anymore. So you're going to run a purge command. You're going to just type purge. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to be in a window or anything. You can do it down here, but you don't have to. You can just start typing. Type purge, hit enter. It's going to give you a little menu here to say purge all. Yes, I'm going to get rid of all kinds of stuff, all the layers and all the data and everything behind the scenes. Purge all items, yes. And you'll see the layer list will go significantly shorter. Whoop. So there's not much left in there now. That's close enough. I don't have to really whittle it down anymore. I've got a manageable set here. So I'll turn everything back on. Okay, so now we're going to save as. We're not going to overwrite the original. We're going to save it as something else. So I'm just going to call it _clean. And you want to save it in AutoCAD 2007 format. When you do a save as, if you have a newer version of CAD, a lot of times it'll default to that newer version. So in my case, it was originally 2010. You can change this default in your preferences. I'll show you, or I'll try and find that here in a second. So save it new. If you go to, let's see, edit, where's it at? I'm not sure where it is. It's been a long time since I've changed this. Options, maybe it's options. Yeah, options. Under options, you have open and save. So you'll change your file save from 2010 or 18 or whatever you have to 2007, and that'll become your default. That way you don't have to remember to do it every time. All right, so now that I have this, I'm generally going to be done, but there are some little buggy things that might appear. So I'm going to leave it open. I'm going to fire up Visio. And I'm just going to drop a basic document in here so you can see what happens. All right, so we have, I'm not assigned to a project or anything. Doesn't really matter. All I'm doing is importing a CAD file. Okay, so you're going to go Insert, CAD Drawing. You're going to go find the converted drawing. In my case, I put it in this Convert folder, if you remember. And I named it Clean just now. You're going to get this window. Now, before you go any further, you'll notice this looks real funny. One thing that I have learned is that when you're importing into Visio, if it looks like this, and you have kind of these artifacts over here on one side or the other, then you have to go in and find the blocks that are in there, and you have to break them up into their pieces. So there's still some items in the CAD file that are blocks. Now, I've already done this, so I know which ones they are. You'll see them here. So what you can do in that case is you can turn everything off, turn on the equipment, because those are the ones that have the blocks. Select everything and use that X command to explode again. And then you can turn everything back on just to see what it looks like. And we'll go. Now when you have it open like this, you'll notice I'll try and save it. And it'll give me an error. So you'll have to go back to Visio and delete the file. Now, if you in error didn't uncheck some options when you first import it, then you'll have something like that pop up when you try and delete it. It'll say shape protection, but you can right-click on it. You can change the properties and uncheck these options that don't let you move it or delete it. So we'll go ahead and hit OK, and then we'll delete it. Okay, so now that I've removed it from here, I should be able to save it. Cool, it's saved. Now I'll try and import it again. Take a look. All right, so I want to uncheck size and position, uncheck lock against deletion because we want to be able to delete it possibly. And then generally we'll say use custom scale, and you can set the scale, or if predefined works for you, that's great. What you want to do though is remember what the scale is, and you can come back in here and reference it later so that each floor plan as you go throughout a building are all scaled the same way. You don't want one scale to be, 1 to every 100 inches and then another one to be another 1 to 300 inches, because it'll end up confusing people in terms of kind of spatial awareness of where they are, what the building is shaped like and everything. Once you've got all these set, you can view the layers that are in there. You can set some visibility and things. I don't really mess with those too much. But once you get it to this point, it looks like it's sized pretty well for the page. I'll go ahead and hit OK. So this one came in big, right? So I don't want that. I want to adjust it. So it came in really big. So what I want to do is go back to my properties, and I'm going to change it to a custom scale. I'm going to say 300 inches, 1 to 300, and we'll apply and see what happens. Now it fits. That fits much better on the page. So that custom scale really is the way to go. And I think somewhere between 1 to 200, 1 to 300, or 1 to 400, depending on how the engineer designed the building, would be good. But it kind of fits pretty well in this page. Now, it might look real goofy right now. All the text is stretched out, but the walls look all right. Well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to convert all of these, the text and the equipment, to Visio shapes, but we're going to leave the walls as an AutoCAD inserted object. And the reason for that is that way we don't have to convert the walls to Visio shapes and take all the time to do that, because it'll churn for a while to do it. But what it also allows us to do is leave it as just an inserted, almost like an image, and so it uses less memory as a result and speeds up your performance within Visio. So we're going to right click on it. We're going to go to CAD drawing object, convert. And first thing I'm going to do is unselect all. I don't want to convert everything. The only thing I want to convert are my equipment names, and my room names. Now, if you had added a layer for zone sensors or some sort of special lines or something you wanted to differentiate and wanted to be able to move them or manipulate them in Visio, then you can convert them as well. But you don't want to convert everything else. You just want to convert the things you need to. There are some advanced options here. I tend to check this option here at the bottom that says do not convert hatch patterns into Visio shapes, because hatch patterns, if they still exist in here, as you may know, will take kind of a shaded area and turn it into a bunch of lines or a bunch of different shapes in Visio. We don't want that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. We've got just our layers selected that we want. Hit OK again, and you're going to see it kind of churn for a bit. I've been bogging down my system tonight doing this, so it might take it a little bit longer. So you'll see it try and convert, and then you'll see it process down here at the bottom. Wait for the system to catch up. All right, so it rendered pretty well, right? So if we wanted to kind of zoom out here, this is what it looks like. Now you can still select all the objects, and if you do kind of a click and drag, you'll see all the objects that have been converted plus the floor plan. Now some kind of maintenance to do once you have it in here is you're going to utilize this layers option up under the home menu. It's going to become your friend when you're dealing with floor plans. So you'll click on the floor plan background, the walls and everything. Okay, you're going to go to layer properties, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lock the CAD drawing layer. The CAD drawing layer is the one that the rest of the CAD drawing that we did not convert. But we did convert these other items. Those were the individual items that we selected a moment ago. You can also lock those items, and what that does is it allows you to see them in here, but doesn't allow you to select them. So you'll notice when I drag, I can't select this text anymore. I can only select the room names and numbers because I converted them, they're on a separate layer, and I didn't lock the layer. So this will be really helpful when you're dropping control modules on here. So you'll go to our floor plans, you'll drop a module shape in here, right? And let's say, oh, it's got to reside right here, but it's kind of behind this. You could, if you wanted to, slide it down. That's the benefit of converting the room names and numbers. Okay, and you'll see that gray kind of lets this bold black of our module pop a little bit so you can see it better. Let me get rid of that. Some other things you can do in the layers, you'll notice the colors came in to match, so it's kind of a gray. You can turn that off, and you can see what it does. So it changed them to that black color. Now what you can't do, because you didn't convert it, is you cannot change the color of the CAD drawing background. That's why we set the color in CAD when we were there. Now for the equipment stuff, we're ultimately not going to show that on here. This is really just used to help us place equipment. So what we'd want to do is we would leave it on to locate where we might want to put our modules like this. And once we've done that, then we can go back into the layer and just turn off the visibility to those items and turn off the printing. You don't want it to be not visible on the page but accidentally print. Okay, so we'll turn both of those off together. Once we turn them off, boom, now all our equipment is hidden, all the equipment names are hidden. All we're left with is the floor plans with the walls and the room names and numbers. So now we can easily go through, drop all our modules in place, and then do your wiring between the two. Right. Let's see if there's anything else I missed here. It does give you a item count, but that's helpful to know if you can delete something or not. So those are kind of the features to go through. I think that's all I have to cover at this time. If you do have any questions about it and think maybe I could do a follow-up for any things that we find throughout learning about these tools that might be useful, I can maybe create a follow-up training video for that. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm going to leave it today. You just, at this point, you've got all your things in Visio that you need. You do this for each floor plan. You drop it onto different pages. Oh, one last thing that I did think to mention. This layers, all the settings within the layers are for this page and this page only. When you go to page 2, it doesn't appear. It's only for that page. So you have to do similar work on the layers within each page. So now you've got it in Visio. You can save it to your project if you've built it that way, which is probably the best way to do it. But yeah, if you have any other questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.